PSQ Nation, and let me be the first to greet each and every one of you quality practitioners and advocates. Happy 53rd anniversary to PSQ. As you all know, we are established in 1969 and we are already 53 years old. So that's a great achievement for all of us. And I am very lucky today that we are joined by the president of PSQ. Hi, Doc Ray.
Hi, Doc Narro. Happy anniversary to all of the PSQ members and to all of the supporters of PSQ from around the globe. Happy 53rd year. Wow. Was that in May 17th,
Yep.
1969, right, Doc Narro?
Yes, that is correct. And if they want to really have a glimpse of the history of PSQ, they can go directly to our website, which is www.psq.org.ph.
Or they can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a specific video in there that we created sometime last year or in 2020 that shows some of the, as you mentioned, Doc Narro, some of the glimpse of the past.
Yep. So, as we are celebrating the anniversary of PSQ, we will be again joined by industry experts and leaders on this second season of the Quality Leaders Bootcamp. And for the initial salvo of this bootcamp, we are very much lucky that we are joined today by an industry expert in the person of Engineer Alex Bantilan. Good afternoon, Engineer Alex.
Good afternoon, Dr. Narro and Dr. Ray. Good afternoon.
Yep.
Good
So,
afternoon.
sige,
Thank you for having me here.
magkumustahan muna tayo, no? How are you? How are you today, Sir Alex?
So far so good. Okay naman. Just finished last week teaching in SBMA Subic.
Wow.
That's amazing. I'm seeing, Alex, by the way, that you've been doing like series of trainings, right? Quality management trainings, and then maybe you can share like a bit of what you do, or maybe some of the things that you train. Like say, but because I know that you are into a lot of ISO specific courses and certification.
Yes, sir. Dr. Ray, that's correct. No. I've been doing training and consultancy and audit. So on my own company, QGen Management Consultancy Services, and also as part-time auditor as certification body auditor under GCL International. So from time to time, I do conduct trainings, public and private, then in-house as well, through on-site and online through webinars. At the same time, I also conduct audit, internal, the first party audit, second party audit, and third party, the certification audit. And then the other one is consultancy for those organizations seeking ISO certification to ISO 9001 Quality Management System, ISO 14001 Environmental Management System, and ISO 45001 Occupational Health and Safety Management System.
Wow, so there's a lot of things going on in the life of Sir Alex. Truly an inspiration. It is truly an inspiring work. Ano? Being an auditor, being an assessor is, what should I say, very inspiring, and it reveals a lot to the quality and character of a person when you are an auditor. Syempre, when you are an auditor, nandyan, di ba, may mga nagpipigil tayo
Correct.
when to release that big shots, that big guns to the company. So let me now start, Sir Alex.
Yes, sir.
Some questions. We prepared some questions, of course, for all of you guys. So uh, now that we are in the post-pandemic season, I believe. So I'm very hopeful. This is already post-pandemic. Cross fingers to that. Okay. So
Hope.
in your own organization, and you mentioned the company that you are part of the third-party audit. So what do you think are their survival skills or your survival skills to keep the operations running or to keep the company afloat?
Yeah, for the certification body, where I was employed as part-time auditor, what I noticed is that before pandemic, the trainings that they have conducted is the traditional, so meaning on-site, face-to-face. But due to pandemic and even after, or shall we say post-pandemic or not yet over, but still we're going through that phase, no? What I've noticed is that I already shifted to the online webinar, which is one of the factor that they survive with the training, for example, because I'm also a what do you call this one? Trainer on the other company. Actually, there's plenty on the Ferriby Marine. No? They do conduct the online training, so that made them survive for the moment. And then another thing that they have done is the implementation of work from home, which is also, shall we say, contributed to the less expense in the office, sample lightings, then electricity bills, water bill. So then what else? Then again, to continue the operations of the certification body, we all know that a lot of organizations opted to close during pandemic. So which means we lost clients as well. The same with all other organizations, no? But then again, because of the after the shall we say post-pandemic, clients are now one by one returning and seeking certification to ISO. So that's a good sign. But of course, when it comes to sustaining the operations, I believe they lowered the cost of certification. Most of the certifying body now are, shall we say, lowering the cost. Otherwise, there's no client that will survive because
Yeah.
the pre-pandemic before is the cost of certification, as I believe NU and the rest of the your organizations will uh, definitely agree that the cost of certification is not cheap.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's really expensive. But most of the certifying body, I believe, and the same goes with the GCL, I believe they lower the cost just to sustain the operation. Otherwise, uh, they will have negative impact on the
Yeah.
operations.
Yeah. On a personal note, Engineer Alex, if you will be the one to decide, would you prefer like to have a face-to-face audit or mas gusto mo sir yung virtual audit?
Yes, Dr. Naro, that is a good question. Actually, it's not me only. It's I think it goes the rest of my fellow auditors. No, remote audit is really a challenge, although it already existed long before the teleconferencing, no, the Skype audit, no remote audit. But we have to consider risk arising from those type of audit. For example, here in the Philippines, the internet connectivity, it's really a challenge. No? It's not that the same with other countries. So when you do remote audit, technically it will pose a challenge, no, on both auditee and auditor. But if you're going to ask for my own opinion, I would still prefer, no, and it goes the same to all our clients. They still prefer the on-site, or shall we say the face-to-face. I believe because they think it is more value adding, no, to see the actual process, the actual activity rather than looking at cameras, looking at through internet like Zoom or MS Teams or Google Meet that from time to time freeze the interview because of unstable internet connectivity. So I still prefer as an auditor, no, I still prefer a face-to-face, Doc Naro and Doc Ray, rather than the remote. But due to extraordinary event like the COVID-19, uh, some clients opted to choose the remote audit because it shall we say less expenses. You will not cover the hotel, you will not cover the travel expense at the comfort of your office. Then no, you can do the audit. But still, most of them when we do as on survey, they still prefer the on-site or the face-to-face.
That's amazing. I could imagine engineer Alex like doing a lot of virtual audit, but there's a lot, right, Doc Narrow, that happened during this
Yeah.
pandemic. We're still on the pandemic, but
Yes.
there's a lot of things that we learn in terms of doing the virtual audit. But definitely, I would agree with you, engineer Alex, that it's really nice if you can really do the face to face when it comes to auditing, because you can actually see it. I mean, by yourselves, not
Yes.
necessarily mean that we are not trusting all of our clients, but it's really good to see the actuals. Like say for instance, right, going back to the concept of Japanese, the gemba walk, right, going into the scene of the crime. I believe that's a great practice, and really combining the learning coming from the pre-pandemic and then the learning that we got coming from this pandemic. Just it's playing on my mind when you were answering the specific question, Engineer Alex,
Yes.
when it comes to the implementation of. I want to go to another topic, which is the implementation of the different technologies of the Industry 4.0, and I'm seeing that there's a lot of impact definitely on how we do our quality management practices in all organizations. But from your perspective, and maybe in your experience in auditing some of its organizations, what are some of the challenges in terms of really implementing the technologies on the Industry 4.0, and how our companies are coping up with the advancement in the emerging technologies? How are they overcoming all of these challenges?
Yes, Dr. Ray, when it comes to Industry 4.0, I believe because of this age of artificial intelligence, then robotics, especially in the industry of manufacturing, construction, food production, automobile, they are deploying most of the robots, to perform tasks that is done by humans. So less intervention from humans, but more on the equipment and machinery. So it really plays a different role now on this time of auditing, not unlike before when I experienced on the 2008 version of the standard way back many years ago. No, more on human intervention, but due to technology, I believe less human intervention, more on the equipment and machinery that is doing most of the work. So during audit, uh, we are more on the shall we say, on the instrumentation, calibration, They do the monitoring, the measuring, But still, the human factor is still a consideration, especially not only because in the other industry, like for example, the service industry, like education sector, healthcare system, tourism, agriculture, they're still on the human presence of human factor. So still, the challenge is the how are you going to audit given all those technologies? Because honestly, as an auditor, you must study, You must study carefully, very well, the operations of the organization so that you can audit properly. Because if you don't have the mastery or the information of this organization, how they operate, what are their values, the vision, mission, or the purpose of what they're doing it. So it may pose a challenge for auditors. So technically, we have to study. We have to learn how they do it, how they process it, how they do the activities. But like what I've said, given the technology, there are areas that are easier to audit on these times of Industry 4.0. And also, there are also areas that are difficult to audit or challenging
Mhm.
given the condition of the internet connectivity in our country. No? We're still way back, but not so much. I see improvements all throughout the year, to the speed of our internet connectivity, but still we can still enhance. Yeah.
I hope that, thank you for that, Engineer Alex, and I hope we can fast track the implementation of the 5G
Yeah.
across the country.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing
I
the
hope.
5G, it's like it's only like a symbol, but in terms of the performance, I don't feel that we are already on a 5G environment. And
Yeah.
5G
Agree.
is one of the enablers actually of the fourth industrial revolution. And by the way, Engineer Alex, so with all of the advancements of technology these days, right, how do you make yourself updated, or how do you make yourself trained in all of these technology? Do you take, like, say, do you go to YouTube, or do you take it in a specific training partners, or how do you make yourself updated with all of these advancements?
Yes, sir, Doc Ray, no? For us certification body auditors, what we technically do is we have a process whereas we evaluate the competence of our auditors. So by that, we are able to determine the training needs, especially not all auditors are on my same age bracket. Most of the auditors that I've worked with, some of my mentors are on their 70s, and so they are a little bit on the, shall we say, there's a challenge when it comes to technology. So but on my side, since I was born in the 84, so so we are on the almost same age bracket. So I was able to cope up with all the technology. But still, certifying bodies, what they do with the auditors, they send them to trainings. And aside from that, what I practice on myself, no, I always attend trainings on my own expense. Like for example, I do attended trainings the like of Lean Six Sigma, then other standards like ISO 14001 environmental, ISO 45001 occupational health. Aside from the quality management system, no, that I usually audit for the past 11 years, a certification body auditor as a part-time.
Yeah.
So I think training will always plays a big role in every auditors, because before you become confident, you must be competent. I always tell that to my trainees, because you cannot audit what you don't know. You have to really
That's
study.
true.
You have to really learn. No, it's not only knowledge; it's also skills. At the same time, work experience plus audit experience. Not just work experience, but also audit experience. So you have to combine them all. That contribute for you to become a competent auditor. No? So training always. And aside from that, Doc Ray and Doc Naro, no, for your information, I'm also a member of the CQI IRCA. So as
Mm,
a member of International Register of Certificated Auditors, we have this what you call CPD, a requirement for us. The
okay.
same with the land-based continuous personal development. So we are required to attend trainings for a given number of hours, and we have to submit it,
Mhm.
and they will validate and verify if it is done according to the CQA IRCA framework. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
nice.
go ahead, Dr.
Just one more, Doc
Yeah.
Narrow. I believe that's a huge plus, Engineer Alex, right? I mean, if you keep yourself trained in all of these things, or if you're a lifelong learner, definitely that's a huge plus. Being an auditor, being in that specific field in quality management. And by the way, just want to greet our friends from CQI, especially the Hong Kong branch.
Yeah.
So, hi.
Hello, CQI.
Go ahead, Doc Narrow.
Yeah. I heard a lot about training, about continuous development, not just on yourself but the other members of your organization. Because I believe we are all familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals of the year 2030. So they say it will be sink or swim. If you're not prepared, you prepare to sink, okay? Or if you are prepared, okay, you can really be afloat, okay? So with that, Engineer Alex, what future-proofing techniques is your organization doing to ensure or be sustainable?
Yeah. When it comes to sustainability, I believe one of the areas being focused by the certifying body, again, it's still investing in yourself, no? Meaning they heavily invest on the competence of auditors, no? Because when you conduct audit, we always say that we have to add value, not just sorry to say, no, not just a checklist or tick list auditor. Most of the based on my experience, no, some clients I've heard some auditors attending are just most checklist based or tick list based, rather than looking at the operation itself. How does it work? What are the risks? What are the opportunities? What are the controls? No. So the first thing is the CB always invest. Our CB always invests in the training of our auditors for competence. So that will ensure that whenever we are deployed to conduct certification audit, whether stage 1, stage 2, surveillance or certification or transfer or special audit under certification body, we make sure that we are fully confident because we are competent. Nah, that's the
Yep.
first. Then the second is change. We always adapt to change. Most of the CBs, like for example us, we need to constantly look at those changes that our industry, especially those clients that we're auditing. Now, if there are change in regulatory requirements, change in the environment, change in the supply chain, change in the client and customer requirements or industry regulatory requirements, we have to look at it and we have to adapt. Otherwise, if we will not, then you will be extinct. You'll be outdated, and we need to cope up with those changes. Especially nowadays, it's really a fast-changing world. Everything is very so much dynamic, constantly changing. No, every now and then, especially Doc Rey and Doc Narro with the industry regulatory requirements. For example, you're auditing hospital, you're auditing automotive, automobile, in manufacturing, construction, education sector. It's really, you really have to adapt to those changes. So I think those two are really the sustainability, future-proofing of our organization. No, heavily invest on the competence of each and every auditors, and then able to adapt to those changes, especially with the requirements of the industry.
Yeah. One of the major factors also, Engineer Alex, no, of being like a sustainable organization is diversity and inclusion. So as of now, what is your take or what is the current situation in terms of diversity and inclusion in your own organization?
Well, so far, like what I've said, in our organizations, not all auditors are engineers. So technically, when it comes to talents, so we are diversified. No? We have auditors in healthcare, for example, nurse, dentist, then we have psychologists. We have
Wow.
also auditors working in the maritime industry, like what I am. I am also actually a seafarer by profession. I am actually a seafarer by profession. I am still an active seafarer on board, boarding oil and chemical tankers. So while on vacation, I am a part-time auditor of the certifying body, at the same time managing my own company, the QGen, that also conduct first party and second party. That is for QGen, and for the GCL is the third party.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that we do, no, in our organization.
Yeah. Doc Ray?
Actually, that's a good thing, right, Doc Naro? Thank you for bringing that up, the diversity inclusion, and it's really good to hear coming from Engineer Alex that the auditors are coming from
Yes, yes.
different exposures, different background. And I believe that's as mentioned by Engineer Alex that it really adds value to the organization. And I just want to piggyback on what you mentioned, Dr. Naro, earlier when it comes to the UN sustainability goals, right? And I just have a quick question for Engineer Alex in terms of maybe to your or own organization or to the organizations that you are working with, your partners. How do they usually respond to the movements on environmental issues? Like, say, for instance, we're talking about the carbon footprint reduction, the community impact assessment of, I mean, to the industry. How does it work, or how do you usually respond to that movement?
Yep, Dr. Ray, no, some of the clients that I've audited through the years, I've saw their progress. One of the significant change that contributed to the environmental protection is, for example, they acquired the solar panels as one of their sources of electricity. No, I've sold a lot of clients looking at on that possibility. No, so they acquired those solar panels as source of electricity. Then some organization that I audited already shifted to electronic copies, no, rather than printing hard copy, no, to save trees. That's one of the another significant
That's nice.
changes. Yes, and some of our clients also do the recycling, reuse, no, method. So they not just dispose their product, no, because aside from quality management, I also audit environmental management. So I always look at the life cycle of your product or service from raw material to the final disposal of your product. So I always ask how are your products when it reach its life cycle? How do you deal with it? Are you going to dispose it or just throw it to the garbage, or how are you going to ensure that this product will not harm the environment? Because that's the purpose of the EMS standard. So some are recycling it, converting it to other useful product, no, or useful hardware, and some are uh, adapting new practices or best practices. Like for example, there some of the urinals of the clients were not utilizing water anymore. No, the
Yeah.
waterless. No, that's another environmental friendly initiatives that they have implemented. No? And actually, there are a lot, but that's some of the things that I've seen so far when I was conducting certification audit or third party.
That's good, and it's also interesting, Dr. Narro and Engineer Alex, because I used to post in the LinkedIn environment the poll surveys, and one of the poll surveys that I posted was about the purchasing decisions of the
Mm.
consumers, whether they would want to purchase in a company with, I mean, the company that deals with sustainability, and
Yeah.
like a huge chunk of customers or consumers would really want to partner or would really want to do business with companies that really
Yes.
focus more on driving that sustainability aspect of the organization. That's great. Back to you, Dr. Ro.
Yeah, I believe it has something to do, Doctor, with the ethical issues that is with the company who follow like the sustainable development goals, or who promote being sustainable. All right. On that note, also I think this could be part of sustainability, because this is a hot topic right now regarding the hybrid work arrangement. I know
Yeah.
my friend here, Dr. Ray, has a lot to say. Baka kulang
Yeah.
yung isang oras natin, no, if I interview Dr. Ray about this hybrid work arrangement. So, uh, on that note, Engineer Alex, what do you think is the ideal number of hours or number of days that an employee should report to the office, and what must be the proportion, should I say, of the work from home or the work from office work arrangement?
Yes, Dr. Naron, Dr. Rino. When it comes to the hours of work and hours of rest, no, arrangement, I believe it still depends on the industry or sector. No, like for example, the manufacturing industry, no, construction. Uh, you cannot ask them not to work 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, depending on the timeline of their product to be finished, no, or to be acquired. So, but if a normal office hours, I believe if it is around 8 to 5, I think it should be reduced to about 5 5 to 6 hours. Or like for example, let's start at 9 a.m. then we end up at around 3 p.m. Why? Because why I choose this type of work arrangement or schedule is that we all know by a fact that traffic is one of the major issue in our country. So if you work at 8 a.m., so you need to be up at around 4 or 5 a.m. just to travel at least 2 to 3 hours, no, just to meet the time of login, no, or time in. So I believe around 9 a.m. Then to complete on the day at about 3 to 4 p.m. No, just again to give time for travel, because again it eats a lot of our time. No, this traffic. Even though we have the free ride on the MRT or LRT, I believe, but still it eats a lot of time. Most based on statistics, no, and even in audit,
Yeah.
that's why there's a lot of, especially during opening meeting or on-tray meeting, you see a lot of the employees which are not present. One of the reason, traffic. So still we are still affected, no? That's why I think implementing those flexi time will be much better. And uh, some organizations, I believe, they still opted the work from home, especially for the recently in the news, the BPO industry. I believe they are still fighting for the work from home, and also at the education sector. Now they are not teachers were not forced to report. I do
Yeah.
believe, right? There is already a definite order that you're not forced uh, to be in the premises of the institution. No, so that's a good thing. No, that's a good sign that they taking into consideration all these factors, especially in this demanding world that we have right now.
Yeah. On that note, for the academic sector, we are now slowly going back to the office.
Slowly,
And
yeah.
because my work is on partnerships and linkages,
Mm.
most of our partners would already want to meet us in person. Like they
Ah,
would already want to be in an in-person
Mm.
meeting.
yes,
So
yes,
medyo mataas na yung demand natin sa in-person meeting. And we really want
yes,
to maintain sana the usual na we can do it virtual kung mga plan
yes,
sessions, no? So but still they want it I don't know. They want it face to face or an in-person meeting. So can I get, of course, the side of my partner here, Doc Ray? I know you have a lot to say about this.
It's actually, yeah. I mean, it's a hot topic, especially in the IT BPO, IT BPM
yes,
industry. It's because of that news, and it's not what they call that, the move was coming from the government, and definitely we respect that view coming from the government to revive the economy so that we can help out in terms of that aspect of our country. But then again, the other part of that would be a lot of our employees don't want to go back to the office yet, and they would want to, if they can do the work from home like in the long term or forever, then they would want to do that. It's because there's a lot of benefits definitely from an
yes,
employee. But for us to revive the economy, then we would want people to go out of their
yeah,
their homes. So that's it's a huge balancing act organizations need to do at this point, because there's a lot of what they call that, there's a lot of like money involved in that discussion. It can be
yes,
either in the incentives that are the incentives that will be coming from the government, or there will be, I don't know if there will be a penalty if we won't do that. But at least at this point, I believe it was already approved in terms of the hybrid
yeah,
model. 70% of the time would be maybe the employees can go to the office, and 30% of the time then they can stay from and they can work from home. And I believe a lot of people are saying that hybrid will be the future work arrangement, but for me it's really work from anywhere. That's that's my view in terms of the future. And going back to the, because there's a lot of poll surveys that are also posted in LinkedIn regarding the hybrid work, regarding the remote work. And there's also this specific study, Dr. and engineer Alex from the Harvard Business School, when it comes to, if Doc Nara was asking earlier, so how many days would be like the right number of days in terms of going back to the office, or in terms of that hybrid model? And as mentioned in that specific study in Harvard, it was done sometime in 2020, and they mentioned that just 1 or 2 days in the office is actually the ideal setup for hybrid work. provides the employees with the flexibility they crave without isolating of going to fully remote, because I believe that's one of the struggles, right? If you're going to like 100% remote, that you feel like you're isolated, you're lacking that connection with a lot of your co-workers. So 1 to 2 days would be the sweet spot at this point. And I don't know, maybe sometime in the nearest future, what would be the outcomes or the findings of the new studies that are being done at this point. So for me, I'm open to it, but I'm looking forward if we can have that work from anywhere arrangement. I believe, and I would agree with you, Engineer Alex. It would really depend on the industry or the work that you do. But in the like, say for instance, in the work that we do, maybe we can do it like from anywhere. I believe that will give us or the employees a more flexibility, the work life balance that we were looking for prior to the pandemic. I believe that's for me, that's a future that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
So we're lucky actually that we can have that, because other industry, it's really, there's
Challenge.
no option.
There's no
Yeah.
way.
On the sa amin kasi on my organization, we do it previously we do it 3 to 2. 3 days reporting to the office, 2
Yes.
days reporting or working from anywhere you want. But now 4-1 na ngayon, 4-1. Sana wag mag 5-0, okay? We're still hoping that there would still be like a work from home or work from anywhere setup. All right. Doc Ray, the next question please to Sir Alex.
Okay. Maybe at this point, I just want to ask Alex. It's still regarding to that idea, right? And maybe the question would be, what regulations or support should the government do, or should the government can give us in order to maintain that balance on productivity and quality of life of the workforce?
I think Doc Ray is for me, the strict enforcement or implementation of the labor code of the Philippines is one factor. No? Because if you're going to look at the provisions of the labor code, there's a lot of really good things, as stated. But the problem is the implementation. No? We're lacking of that enforcement implementation, perhaps due to lack of resources like budget. No? And then another thing is the competence of the person implementing it. That's another question. So I think one is the strict enforcement of implementation of this labor code. Then aside from that, the strict also monitoring and inspections of the government agencies. Like for example, ensuring that the workplace and the workers are safe at the same time. And also not just the workers and the workplace, but also the visitors visiting the premises are safe. So it goes both ways, no? So I think that's another thing. And then on this time of pandemic, I believe and I think everybody will agree on the issue of mental health, no? I believe we should focus really now on that area because honestly speaking, way back before, it's not often being discussed, no? Perhaps Doc Ray and Doc Narro, there is a stigma when it comes to mental health. No, that's why we are not often discussing it or openly in public discussing it. There is always a fear of something, or perhaps we will be judged by other person. But now, when it comes to productivity and quality of life, I believe mental health is an issue, a pressing and urgent issue. The same goes, Doc Naro and Doc Ray, on the shipping industry, as a seafarer as well. It is very alarming actually based on statistics. Increasingly na po yung am I allowed to say it? Increasing na kasi yung issue ng cases ng suicide, no? It's really increasing po, napaka-alarming na po. Kaya po even in the shipping industry, mental health, we have a training and course now for mental health. there is an urgent need on each shipping company in the Philippines to provide those types of training, no? Hindi na siya na hindi pag-uusapan, talagang kailangan na pong pag-usapan. Hindi na kailangan itago, hindi na kailangan i-cover up. You need to really discuss it, talk it out and sit it down, talagang productive na pag-usapan kasi it really affect the productivity of each and every employee in an organization. Lalo na if you're not focused, no? If you're not focused, then you can clearly see the performance slowly decreasing, no? Lalo na po ngayon in times of pandemic, for the past 2 years na, no? We feel stress, burnout, anxiety, no? Actually po, just to include the ISO 9001, there's actually a clause, no? Doc Narro and Doc Rey, no? There's actually a clause 7.1.4, no? It talks about social, psychological, no? We are also auditing that one. No? I believe Doc Narro is aware of that, and Doc Rey, no? Yeah, we are auditing the stress, burnout, confrontation, no? Lahat po yan, sine-check na rin po namin yan, no? Not just only the physical, na adequate lighting, that's the norm before, no? We check the lighting, the humidity, no? The hygiene.
That's the WEM.
Yes, but now we're also looking after the welfare of the staffing employee or the worker. It's very, very, very important. That's why the ISO 9001:2015 standard is really, shall we say, has a foresight of the future. If your business will be sustained, or if you sustain the success or not.
Yeah. Actually, on the last day or end of April, there was the celebration, right, coming from Engr. That was the celebration from around the globe. That was the World Day for Safety and Health.
Yeah.
I believe ISO was one of the organizations that posted this in the social media. Even posted this specific what they called article coming from ISO. They launched the ISO 45003. It's a global standard giving that practical guidance on managing psychological health, and they mentioned that there's really a huge risk in terms of the work-related stress, because this work-related stress can really lead to the term is psychosocial hazards and even physical harm. So those are the things that's one of the huge concerns, actually, one of the urgent concerns that organizations are looking into, especially during this time of pandemic, that it went beyond the roof in terms of the levels of the mental health related issues.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing it up, Engr, Alex.
Yeah, I think it's high time for the government really to impose those regulations, to really have like what, a regular screening of or regular consultations for with a mental health provider, or with the mental health coach, for example, or psychologist perhaps. Because right now it's still taboo to talk about it, sabi nga ni Engineer Alex,
Tama.
but I believe it's really high time that we do something about it. All right.
If we normalize the conversations, right, of Narro, when it comes to mental health. Yep.
And on that note, Sir Alex, medyo bumigat yung dibdib ko doon, no, sa usapan ng mental health. Medyo nakakalungkot. Okay?
Nakakalungkot po talaga.
Yeah. But on your observation, because this is something to do, I guess, with the perception and depression. Sometimes kasi when you're depressed, you tend to go or buy or eat more or buy a lot of things. On that note, Sir Alex, in your observation to the audits that you do on some organizations that you cater, ano yung mga nagiging considerations na ng consumer or ng iyong mga client for them to get your service, or for the consumer to buy a specific products or services? What are the considerations now?
Yes, Dr. Narro, no? Nowadays kasi compared before, clients just buy because they want or they need. They don't look at the specifications anymore, no? Mass production ika nga. But nowadays, hindi na po ganun yung issue, no? Especially now we are shall we say quality generation na nga eh. More on we look at the quality of product and services. Hindi lang basta ganito, ang dami na nag-iiba na yung requirement ng client po at ng customer. Nagiging more stringent, nagiging more itemized, nagiging more specific. Talagang not just the brand itself, no? They look at the credibility, they look at the reputation, no? Then yung mga consideration nila. Then nandiyan pa rin naman yung mga before they buy a product or service or render service, no? They look at the consideration na location, doon pa rin yung location. Then of course yung price hindi nagbabago. They still look at the price. But most of the clients talaga nowadays gusto nila yung parang ibibigay na lang, mas tawag doon, yung parang mabilis bang more on the e-commerce na rin kasi sir eh. Napakalaking factor na rin yung e-commerce, no? Nowadays, most of the product and services you can easily avail on the market, no? Delivery services. We have clients like they're delivering packages and parcels, no? Napaka-boom na boom. Meaning to say talagang emerging market talaga yung napakalaking market na nitong mga freight and forwarding, no? Mga parcel delivery, no? Kasi nga most of the clients due to pandemic will not go outside their homes, no? They opted to stay for safe and healthy reasons, so they just avail on it online, and then they will have the product delivered on their doorstep, no? Just as he says that. Then when it comes to services naman po sir, for example training, some are now preferring webinar rather than the on-site. Based on my experience, I asked them why. They told me, first of all, they don't need to travel. They don't need to travel because their company are, of course, concerned with the expenses. They don't need to travel. Second, and they don't need to prepare any food or printouts because they can do it even at the expense of their home. So they can do training at home. So they are most of my clients when it comes to training on QGen, they still prepare webinar nowadays rather than the face-to-face. But some in-house, perhaps they request the trainer to be on-site. So that would be exception. But mostly nowadays, they prefer the online webinar. More convenient, no? Less expense. But still, there are still a handful of clients that still prefer the on-site or face-to-face. Especially, I notice it on the traditional clients, or shall we say, older than me. They still prefer that one, no? I can still see based on my data that most of the clients that opted the face-to-face are those age bracket that higher than me. No? So they still prefer the traditional way because they are having some challenge on the usage of, for example, this online or applications like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I believe this is I know we don't have that much time, Doc Narro, Engineer Alex, and there's a lot of things that you've shared with us, Engineer Alex, and thank you so much. This is a very fruitful, meaningful discussion. You sharing like a lot of your experiences with the clients that you work with your own organization as well. And I believe it has provided a lot of our audience right now, like a lot of insights on, especially on how they can be and how they can become not just better, but an effective auditor, or they can be effective in the field of quality management. And two of the things that I can still remember in, I mean, some of your inputs, Engineer Alex, when it comes to if you want to become an effective auditor, that number one is you have to really invest in yourself. You have to make yourself as competent as you are, so that you can build that credibility in the field, especially in the quality management field, so that you can add value to the organization and
Yes.
not just doing the tech box, or just just looking at the criteria,
Yeah.
but really looking at the organization with fresher lens of eye, so that you can really provide, you can add that value. And the second one is really, it's really all about adapting to change. And when you adapt to change, definitely you're going to look at what are the other opportunities where you can grow as
Yes.
a professional. And I believe those are the two takeaways that I was able to get from this specific interview with Engineer Alex. How about you, Doc Narrow?
Yeah. For me, the one or the two words that strike me is now we are a generation of quality already. It's a very important thing that we embrace, that we are
Yes.
now a generation of quality, that we are really looking into something, or we are looking for products, brands, or services of high quality before we purchase that brand, that product, or that service. Okay, just a quick reminder for our PSQ Nation and to our audience, please, okay, you have to complete, okay, the 5 days of this quality bootcamp for you to be able to receive your certificate. All right? Any
And
last
also, Doc
words? Yeah,
Narrow,
go ahead,
Dr.
Doctor.
I just want to invite like, a lot of our participants at this point, maybe those ones who are not PSQ members yet, that you can be part of our community. Especially, this one is one of the newest programs of PSQ, the PSQ Technical Hubs, and one of the hubs is actually the Quality Management Hub. And Engineer Alex is our lead on that specific hub, so we'll be
Thank you,
doing
sir.
like series of activities as well, and some of the projects that we can do for this year to help out our country to become a more competitive, globally competitive nation.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Uh,
Aro?
Engineer Alex, any final words for our audience before we close this interview?
Yes, Doc Narro and Doc Ray. First of all, I would like to thank Philippine Society for Quality, PSQ, with the leadership of Doc Rey Fremista as President and Doc Narro, sir. Thank you for inviting me as the, of course, elected leader of the Technical Hub for Quality Management. I hope to share my knowledge and skills in the auditing for the 11 years. I hope I could guide and contribute to the alleviation of life, quality of life of our community, society as well. And then again, I'm also grateful for PSQ for allowing us to be a corporate member, the QGen Management Consultancy Services. It really give us the opportunity to connect with the other industry partners, and of course, um, still to set our purpose. Why I put up my company QGen Management is of course to pay back to the Philippine government as a scholar ng bayan. That's why all our services are at lowest, low cost, but still with high quality because it's still my priority, no? Still payback, no? Ibigay pabalik sa gobyerno ang lahat ng binigay kung ano man meron ako ngayon, no? Again, maraming salamat po, sir, Dr. Ray and Dr. Narro, for inviting me, and for all our members and viewers. Again, good afternoon. Thank you po. Mabuhay po ang
Yeah.
PSQ.
Thank you so much. That has been our quality management hub lead, engineer Alex Bantilan. So this has been, of course, your host, Dr. Narro Navarro, the Vice President for Learning and Development of PSQ, and together with me, our President, Dr. Rey Fremista. Have a great day, everyone. See you tomorrow for our second session.
Bye-bye.